Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Unstable housing projects made by unscrupulous builders, dilapidated buildings ready to collapse. There is a big housing crisis in India's cities which gets exposed every monsoon. On Urban Reality today, we seek some hard answers to a very basic question. How can we fail in our city planning so much that people are willing to risk their lives living in dangerous buildings instead of moving out or finding an alternative? The spotlight today will be on two cities, the National Capital Territory, which has seen two building collapses between Greater Noida and Ghaziabad and has caused deaths of 9 people. Also on the Mumbai region, where there have been a few collapses in Thane and outer Mumbai, but thankfully no deaths so far. But how long can we keep tempting fate? Let's begin with Mumbai. My colleague Ashwini joins in with a group of such people who continue to risk their lives every day.
The Maximum City houses some of the finest buildings in the country, but there are also some really old and dilapidated buildings, and surprisingly people still continue to stay in these buildings despite knowing that these buildings can pose a great threat to their lives as well as properties. Now, what are some of the reasons why people don't move out? Well, there are multiple reasons. One being sometimes there is a infight between the society members where they are not able to finalize a developer. Sometimes developers don't come forward to redevelop these buildings because of various issues like FSI, or the project is not viable for them. And then the last and the most important reason is that most of these buildings come under Maharashtra Rent Control Act, in which the tenants need the permission of their landlords to redevelop these buildings, and permission is not easily available. And today I am at one such building in Andheri West. You can see this building is really old and dilapidated, but people still continue to stay put in these buildings. And joining me now are some of the residents. So let's try to understand why are they still staying in this building by putting their life in such danger. आप बताइए, ये बिल्डिंग कितनी पुरानी है और आप कितने साल से यहाँ रह रहे हैं?
ये 65 इयर्स बिल्डिंग पुरानी है और हम लोग यहाँ पे 30 साल से रह रहे हैं।
और बीएमसी से कुछ नोटिस आई है क्या?
बीएमसी से 5-6 बार नोटिस आ चुकी है।
बीएमसी की नोटिस आ चुकी है आपको, फिर भी आप क्यों नहीं निकल रहे हो?
अभी 14 साल से तो हम लोग मीटिंग कर रहे हैं ऑनर के साथ, लेकिन मीटिंग में कुछ सीरियसली लेता ही नहीं है। और हम लोग जब भी बोलते हैं तो बोलते हैं हम करता हूँ खाली बोलता है, लेकिन अभी तक उसने कुछ किया नहीं।
इस इलाके में कितने किराए हैं, आसमान को छू रहे हैं किराए, और नाला सुपारा है, विरार तो जा नहीं सकते, बच्चे लोग यहाँ पढ़ रहे हैं। तो ये हमारी मजबूरियाँ हैं जो इस बिल्डिंग में हम जान हथेली पे लेकर बैठे हुए हैं।
So clearly it's a multi-layered problem which needs some holistic solution. Over to you, Manisha.
Thank you, Ashwini. Well, 5 to 6 notices from BMC, and yet the residents are unwilling to vacate that building. Saili Mankekar, Senior Fellow from Observer Research Foundation, Mumbai, joins us for this discussion, and also Kutub Mandviwala, Master Planner and Principal Architect of Saifi Barhani Upliftment Project. Saili and Mr. Mandviwala, thank you very much for joining me. Saili, my first question to you is, what's going on? Here you have BMC coming out with clear notifications, and here there's a group of residents which is saying, but you know what, the owner's not even willing to come and sit with us on the table. Where do we go in such an expensive city? This seems to be like a no way out sort of a situation.
So the thing is that we have to understand is Mumbai is a very, very unique, we are in a very unique situation in Mumbai. The buildings that you're talking about are privately owned buildings, and these buildings are actually where the owners and tenants are paying cess. So the MHADA is actually responsible for repairing these buildings. It's very unique. It's the only one in the world. Now the thing is, the cess repair is so much that the owners don't see a point putting in money into these buildings, because they say that why should we be putting in building money, because the rents that we get are so paltry that there's no point, and they actually want the tenants to leave, because it's only when the tenants leave that they redevelop these dilapidated buildings. And the tenants do not have the kind of money to put in money for reconstruction or redevelopment. And the government finds a huge vote bank in the tenants, and therefore they don't want to take any drastic action of moving these tenants out. So you see, this is a circle that goes on, and there is no solution. Of course, there are solutions, but that will require a lot of political will.
political will. Kutum Manviwala, before we come to the political will, because there's really nothing we can do on this show, or you can do, or Saili can do about political will. But my question is that here's a city which has no land, redevelopment with extra FSI. How is that not possible? You know, economically, can't these tenants be given a flat each and also leave enough on the table for the owner and the developer who comes in to make money and make this an economically viable project?
Yeah, hi. Number of projects are going on in that fashion, where the societies are gathering and or the owner is coming up and there's a redevelopment project which is happening. The case where we are doing around 200 buildings in the SBOT project, which are these dilapidated buildings, and so the trust is taking over the 250 buildings or 200 odd buildings, and then you know, these dilapidated buildings are being pulled down and new buildings with better infrastructures are coming up on this. So there are ways of doing it. We are doing it in the project in the form of a cluster redevelopment, which is a government bylaw of 33(9), which allows certain parcel of land to be redeveloped in cluster, where there is some incentive FSI which is given to make the project viable for the landlord or the developer, and also for the tenants who are staying in the building.
Mr. Manviwala, just let me go back to Saili and then understand. Saili, so Mr. Manviwala is saying that, look, his own trust is undertaking at least 200 redevelopments. My question to you is that what is so unique? I mean, there are 133 buildings, at least that's the number we have, where tenants have refused to vacate. So is it a tenant problem or the owner problem? And how can we find a solution to it? I mean, how large is a vote bank of people living in these 133 buildings?
So it's not only a question of 133 buildings. If you look at it overall, there are about 15,000 such buildings which are in a state of either solid dilapidation, or it will you know, come up in the next few years. Like every year you have about 140, 150 buildings that get added to this list. So you have to understand, we are talking of people living in about 15,000 such buildings which are, you know, not in a great state. So it is a huge vote bank. Second thing, I think the issue is that all these schemes that are really put into place are not very pro-tenant in many ways, you know, because the tenants are people who are paying a very paltry rent. Many of them, of course, there are some buildings in South Bombay where there are very rich people, you know, living and still paying paltry rents. But the point is there are 75% of the buildings are occupied by tenants who are not so well off, who cannot really, you know, put in the money and kind of shift somewhere.
So what's the solution
and
then?
Also,
if it is tenant,
yes.
if
you're
saying that these are not pro-tenant buildings, you have actually really hit the nail on its head. How is, there has to be a solution then?
So there is one very good thing that has come up now. If you look at the new Mumbai development plan, the new development plan actually talks about 1 million homes, you know, that can be added to the whole sum, and this is being talked from this point of view that the old cess building tenants can actually move into these affordable homes that are created. And now it is a question of government taking us, you know, a kind of a decision to actually create these 1 million homes. These homes are basically proposed on lands which are NDZ lands, that is no development lands, but out of these eco-sensitive zones, there are some parts which can be actually, you know, kind of developed.
You're
so
talking about the salt pan,
you know,
salt pan lands which have
there
now been notified as, you know, you can make it. Okay,
exactly.
let me go back to Mr. Manviwala. I've got your point. Mr. Manviwala, how hopeful are you that these 1 million homes on you know, the newly opened salt pan areas will actually take shape, let's say in 5 years from now, and that will be the big solution for Mumbai's dilapidated 15,000 plus buildings?
Well, there are a number of solutions which are coming up. This is one of them. But that is as and when it comes into the DP and when it comes into the reality. So you have to see whether, you know, you can, wherever it is possible to repair and restore these buildings and come back to its decent state for living can be done. If not, then like how we are doing a cluster redevelopment, some amount of redevelopment can be looked at where it can help the infrastructure of the city also, and the tenants can get a new house, and which is a bigger house if they're staying in very, very small apartments, and they can get better infrastructure, they can get better parking facilities, they can get better buildings to stay in.
Okay, so we basically have to keep the tenant who are going to lose their homes, find an alternative for them, whether it's in the new areas which are likely to come up or get open for affordable housing, or it's redevelopment. They're not going to leave the buildings unless there's a viable plan for them and affordable homes for them to live in. Thank you, Saili and Mr. Manviwala. Thank you so much for joining us on Urban Reality today. When we come back, we move to the National Capital Region or Delhi, where 9 lives have been lost this monsoon with illegal buildings collapsing in Greater Noida and Ghaziabad, and urban planners saying this is just the beginning of the mess that NCR is getting into with allowing illegal construction to mushroom in all the urban villages adjoining the capital. Several buildings have collapsed in the National Capital Region in the past 1 week, taking a toll of 9 lives, including a 14-month-old baby. 2 of these collapses happened in Greater Noida's Shaberi village. One was an under-construction building and the other an occupied, hurriedly finished building. Both of these hardly had any breathing space between them, which of course defied all safety norms. Images are on your screen. Soon after, another building collapsed in Ghaziabad, exposing the danger of living in such weak, unstable structures, which are mushrooming all over the urban villages surrounding the capital, with almost non-existent civic amenities. There's illegal construction happening everywhere, including in the heart of Delhi's so-called illegal colonies. And simply, no one is able to curb these. Why is it so? Joining me on this discussion are Geetambar Anand, Chairman and Managing Director of ATS Infrastructure. Also with us, PSN Rao. He's the Director of Housing and School of Planning and Architecture, SPA. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Mr. Rao, I'm going to start. I know I have used the word illegal, but, you know, I'm not even sure whether, at least for the buildings that have collapsed, we can call them illegal, because they simply do not fall in under any regulations as of now. They're village land.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is that if you look at most of our cities in this country, you have engineered buildings and you have unengineered buildings. Now, all these buildings that have collapsed, most of them are in the village areas where you don't have any regulations which are created for these, and therefore it's a free-for-all kind of a situation where people just go and build whatever they want. We do have codes, we do have the National Building Code, we have regulations for the other areas, but here the enforcement is extremely weak, and because there is no enforcement, there is no system of plan sanctioning here. Therefore, people just go ahead and build whatever they want, and obviously...
And these kind of disasters and tragedies keep happening.
Yeah, they're bound to happen.
Okay. Geetambar, Greater Noida Authority has rightfully said this is not our jurisdiction. Okay. These are not registered under RERA either, despite the fact that there are 7-floor structures happening in Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh has a RERA. They're happening right next to a very, very planned part of Greater Noida, earlier known as Noida Extension. How are they falling through the cracks? I mean, these are buildings. These are not nefarious activities that nobody can see. Everyone can see these buildings coming up.
So, Manisha, let's go back to the time when this acquisition of Shaberi was quashed by the court. The plea of the farmers was that land is like our mother and you cannot take it away. We need that land back for agriculture because that is our means of livelihood.
Okay.
Now, industry has this representation to make to the court. Please, in your wisdom, understand that the land that you are returning to the farmer...
So this is my question to you. That land acquisition was quashed because it was acquired under the wrong pretext. You can't take that part away.
No, but Manisha, you know, the land was asked back for agriculture. It wasn't asked back for real estate development.
I get that.
So the essence of the problem is that wherever such acquisition is quashed, be sure, because it's right in the center of a city or a metro, be sure that that land will be exploited for its real estate value. Having said that, first and foremost, when such acquisitions are, when the government or any authority wants to acquire such lands, the court, in its wisdom, shouldn't say, I quashed the acquisition. They should, you know, give them a bigger award. They should give them more money, the farmer, I'm saying. They should give the farmer a better award for the land acquisition, rather than quash the acquisition, because you know, at that very time...
That is what's created the problem, at least in the Shaberi village case.
Everywhere across, so it's happening, the same thing is happening in Gurgaon. The same thing is happening in Delhi. Be sure that whenever land, now these actually...
Okay, let me ask Mr. Rao. Mr. Rao, he's raised a very important point. So farmers do go back to the court and say, look, our land has been acquired, we have not been given the right price for it.
No,
is there a validity? No,
they want it back
for agriculture. Is the point that Mr. Anand making a valid one, that if it's already a almost urbanized area, it probably will never go back to agriculture, and therefore the courts have to use better wisdom rather than just giving it back to the farmer for such kind of illegal construction to happen or unengineered construction to happen.
See, I don't think that is the reason. Whatever be the case, any construction that's happening, it is the responsibility of the local authorities, be it the Noida authority.
What happens here where it's a village land?
Even if it's a village land, yes, okay. Even if it's a village land,
let's hear the
even
point.
If it's a village land, under the municipal law, you have to make provisions. Under the municipal law, you have to make provisions for some building regulations. You have to have systems in place. Currently, systems are not in place, so people are bound to construct. Whether it's a village land or not a village land, whether it's a school, whether it's a residential apartment, anything, people are going to construct because there's a demand.
No, I don't agree.
It's outside the municipal corporations per se.
People are bound to construct is not something we should take for granted. If they are bound to construct, then please don't quash the land acquisition, because let it come in a master plan area.
Let me also take Mr. Rao's point and say, look, there is a RERA which is applicable to every building, okay, where that does not demarcate based on municipality.
500 square yards and above.
Yes, 500 square yards and above, every apartment has to be registered. So that it fell through that crack for sure. There is a national building code. Whether you're building on a village land or you're building in an urban area, that code has to be followed.
Absolutely.
Who has to implement this? In this case, there is a loan which was given. There are loans given to all those home buyers for non-RERA registered bodies.
So actually now...
So what is CREDAI doing about it? You have a relationship with housing finance companies.
So what we have done is, so housing finance company says, agar iski registry ho rahi hai, if stamp duty is being paid, we don't have an issue because we're getting a clear title on which we can secure the loan. What our plea, CREDAI's plea is to all state governments, please do not register any property. As being register, we mean don't convey the title of any property unless and until it is registered in RERA.
That the revenue department is not willing to look at, and this is the big thing. Okay, this is a very important point, that why are you registering properties when they are not RERA registered? So it has to be the reverse. Even the authorities have to be brought into the ambit of RERA. So that's an important point. A question to you is that, I mean, in at least one of the articles, the housing finance company has said that, we examine the economic background, the civil engineer conducts a technical test, and the manager does a physical check. In these Shabari kind of villages and these buildings, loans are given freely. All because, Mr. Rao, these homes are priced at 29-30 lakh rupees.
Yeah.
People are willing, they know that there is no civic infrastructure, yet they're willing to buy. Isn't this a larger crisis of affordable housing in India?
Absolutely, there is a larger crisis. So this is exactly the point that I'm trying to make, is that there is a demand. And when there is a demand and there are locations where people want to move in, and there are builders who want to capitalize on this.
No, don't say builders.
I can say builders because every other person in this country is a builder.
Unscrupulous builders.
Yeah, unscrupulous builders. Builders are registered, only some are registered with RERA. Not everybody is registered with RERA, but anybody can build. I have a piece of land, I'm a builder, I'll build, and then I'm selling. And if it is less than a certain amount, I am permitted by law not to get into RERA. The problem today is buildings are collapsing. Why are buildings collapsing? You have engineers, you have engineering, you have the National Building Code. Why every part of this settlement system not being covered under a regulatory framework? That is the moot point.
So it is under a regulatory framework. There's simply no enforcement.
There's no enforcement of that. There's no enforcement of it, because you do have panchayats where you don't have the staff who know how to enforce. That is also a problem. You have municipal corporations, then you have municipal councils, then you have gram panchayats, you have nagar panchayats. There you don't have the staff and you don't have the know-how how to go in.
It's a chicken and an egg situation. How long will this continue?
There is a capacity problem.
Final word.
Final word is that, you know, first and foremost, in a master planned area, when there's a master plan being, proposed in an area, the courts have to be a little, rational in their decision taking before they quash any land acquisition.
In this case, in Noida extension case, and now what's unraveled in Shaberi, I think that's a very important, point to raise as well.
Point number
and of course, capacity increment.
Yes. Point number 2, you see, RERA has come in, and it is not so that the law is only for the law abiding. So the entire system has to be plugged together so that such properties are not, though no title is conveyed in these properties because there's no map sanction here.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. I think very critical points have come about in this discussion. You know, the government says it sanctioned money under PMAY urban for 55 lakh plus affordable homes, and they will meet its target of 1.2 crore homes well before 2019. But where are these homes if people working in the satellite cities still have to buy illegal flats or unengineered flats in poorly planned buildings? That's the big question to wrap out on. Thank you so much for joining me.